The sun, dipping down below the horizon, sent shocks of scarlet, tangerine, and crimson over the surface of Stowe Lake. One leg of my woolen tights had been shredded. Blood oozed out of the gash in my calf and spread over the hem of my cotton Arawak African print dress. A floret of blood spread over my knee. I winced as I dragged my injured leg behind me. Blood. It runs through our veins, telling a story more nuanced than any report or record Ancestry.com can provide. Inheritance, what we relay in our oral histories, doesn't include all of those skeletons hiding in dank corners of the musty closet we call our family tree. Mine. Almost every African American descended from a slave is also the progeny of a slave owner. My family is no exception. My blood, strongly scented of iron and fear, might attract the leashed dog that belonged to the Stowe Lake killer if I didn't focus. 5 girls disappeared before me, 3 of them in the past month. The news said he was escalating. Only 1 girl escaped so far. I hoped the second one would be me. My breath grew labored from panic and walking. Afraid I'd wear myself out, I found shelter against the mossy trunk of a low-slung, widespread tree. A leather strap held a drum in place over my shoulder. I lifted it over my neck and set it down for a pillow. My drum is a part of my family inheritance. The drum head is made of untreatable untreated rawhide bound with thongs to the red-brown hardwood body. As a child, my tiny calloused hands learned to pound out rhythm on it. My grandfather left it to me when he died. I could barely hear the soft stir of katydids over my pounding heart. In the distance, I heard the barking of his dogs, the steady whistle of the breeze against the branches, and the thrashing of his feet under bush. All of these sounds created intersecting rhythm. What can I say about rhythm? Back in high school, I went to a presentation by the Maranatha Christian Youth Group. Maranatha was an Aramaic word that appeared in the New Testament exactly once, meaning our Lord is come, or some such thing. I have no idea why they chose that particular name, but we used to call them the Merry Nazis because they claimed the African drum beats in rock and roll music made it the devil's music. Allegedly, these beats were used for the worshiping of ancient gods. The entire rhythm section was in cahoots with the Antichrist. 4/4 rhythm was based on the human heartbeat, but these African rhythms focused on the downbeat, which was contrary to nature. I rolled my eyes at their discourse upon the unnatural rhythms of my black body. They decided there was some impurity in my blood, a summoning from deep within my body that called me to the drumming beat on the dance floor. But how could it be unnatural when Africa was our mother? Every race found its genetic heritage in Africa. That was science fact, not fantasy. Theirs was the fantasy that there was something evil in the very genetic makeup of me. If there was anything evil in me, I assure you it didn't come from Africa. It came from the blood of the oppressors, the plantation lords, that ran through me. How did any African ever come to terms with the blood of the rapists, white slave-owning sperm donors that ran through our veins along with that of our African mothers? Anything evil that came from me was part of white Christendom, not alien to it at all. Come out of the bushes, whore, the killer yelled. Still out there searching for me. I'll find you. My dog can smell the stink of your sex. I cowered below the tree, applying wet leaves to my legs to mask the scent of blood. When I was done, I began to softly scratch at the head of my drum. The sound echoed off the walls of the bass, making comforting sounds in my ear to mask his evil voice. He hadn't gotten to me, and if I had anything to do with it, he wouldn't. Come protect me, ancestors, from every side, I whispered, caressing the drum with my fingers. Come protect me, ancestral spirits, from far and wide. The Stow Lake Killer didn't know what I knew. The drum was possessed of dark magic, magic that wasn't African in the least, and the kind of mysticism one would be well warned away from. Indeed, the ancestral spirits warned me against using the spells carved into the wooden kettle drum by Lacey Evans, an angry young slave girl. Delwyn Evans, Lacey's plantation lord father, was unaware of the lessons Lacey learned at the hands of her half-sister Bryn. Perhaps if the man hadn't been evil to all of his daughters, slave and free alike, the young Welsh witch wouldn't have taught these arcane runes to her black half-sister. Then the taint wouldn't have come upon the drum, and the temptation wouldn't be upon me. The temptation to invoke what should never be called upon. But extreme times called for extreme measures. The Stow Lake Killer was a predator, but so was the spirit that lived in the drum. How did the drum grow in power? It depends on who you ask. Those who vilify you sometimes have the power to focus their wicked minds on everyday objects. How many generations had it taken to curse the drum? The drum in question was a small djembe, a type of kettle drum from West Africa. Rumor had it that it arrived with my ancestor when they dragged him here in chains from Mali 200 years ago. My grandfather didn't think the curse came from our African blood. He said it came from the Welsh plantation owners who danced in and out of our bloodlines every time they forced one of our mothers to lie with them. He said it came from the jealous wives who beat senselessly slave girls who were somehow their cousins, or who were sometimes their cousins or half-sisters. The curse was born of blood, begetting blood, and kin betraying kin. It was from fathers flaying the flesh from the backs of daughters, and sons who were born into slavery. That's why the drum hated men like the Stow Lake Killer in particular. He preyed on girls like me, nubile young college girls who hung around the drum circle smoking marijuana with the good folks who made music there. Girls like us gathered around in the drum circles at Golden Gate Park on the weekends. Hippie Hill had a co-ed multicultural vibe and was definitely an all-ages sort of gathering. Some of the girls around the circles are homeless, not me. I attend the University of California, San Francisco, where I learned to pound out rhythms of the flesh in my dorm room 2 years ago. A free spirit with a dusty cloud of tightly curled, dark hair running wild and ungreased and untamed most days. Today I wore afro puffs with a jewel-encrusted turquoise butterfly hair clipped off to one side. I wore flowing gowns of African kente cloth or Jamaican colors, proudly attesting to my heritage. But my loose-fitting dresses were knee-length, and I wore them over tights and knit stockings with oxblood Doc Martens. I lifted the drum and carefully placed it between my shoes, one leather-clad foot cradled either side of it. There was always a price for invoking the spirit that lived within, but I felt I had no choice. My desperate situation fortified my resolve. Without hesitation, I pounded on the rough skin of the djembe. My voice rose over the beat, a soft moan crying out to my ancestors. I heard a bang in the distance. The man's dog cried out in kind. Slowly my head began to turn, neck ringing of its own accord. He sat beside me, dark as pitch, not enclosed in but composed of shadow. My hands moved in time with an earthly beat, counted to the rhythm of my heart. Sound rose in pulsing intensity as the shadow beat solidified. The drum beat rose to a crescendo beneath my furious hands. The dark hound began to howl. Red eyes pierced the gray mist of dust. He was Swin Erwin, Welsh hound of the hunt. Christians called them hellhounds. I believe that their superstitions were what cast the hounds of the hunts as villainous. What did they know? It seems the Maranatha and their ilk felt as certain of my Welsh blood's demonic taint as they were of the African. Perhaps this is why I am a Christian. The palms of my hands began to ache, but I continued, pressing forward with kinetic sound of the dance. The gray hooded figure appeared in the mist beside the hound. She stepped forward and lowered her hood so that I could see her face. It was my friend, Marigold. She'd been dead for 2 weeks now. She winked, closing one of her glinting ruby eyes. Then she grinned, her teeth long and sharp as the tines of an iron fork. You are the one who will be found, I bellowed at the man. Swin Owen will find you, and perhaps you will find me, but it won't help. I pounded into the djembe until his brothers appeared, more hounds of the hunt. With each new dog appeared a woman, one of these cut short in her life by the Stole killer. The dogs were escorts of the dead, but tonight they appeared as vengeful spirits. When I looked down at the drum, my hands were bleeding. I winced when I looked. Blood fed the instrument, my blood and the blood of many of my ancestors soaked into the rawhide head. Once all the women had arrived, he appeared in Azawak, pale beige, long and thin, as a greyhound or a whippet. He was an African hunting dog. The Azawak always appeared last. He sat directly across from me, fixing me with a sad stare. How can you betray your ancestors, he seemed to say. The Azawak was dismayed by my decision to use the white man's magic against him, but I was Welsh, and the dogs ran with her and would protect me.